Hi, and welcome to TalkRx with Dr. Neha. And today's topic, for some reason, several people have been asking me in different ways, shapes, and forms to talk about boundaries. What are they? What are healthy boundaries? Are they different in different situations? So the answer is yes. But I started to really think about it based on their questions. And the way that I formulated kind of a little bit of a structure to think about it is there's different kinds of boundaries. So there are physical boundaries, right? The type of boundaries that, are delineated on a map. So that separate countries, for example. This is our side of the line and this is yours. There are also people's homes where they put gates outside or fence their part of the yard. And sometimes there's signs that say, no trespassing. Prosecutors will be violated, persecutors will be violated. So sometimes there's very clear delineations of physical boundaries. Now, our body is also a physical boundary. So our skin is the physical boundary that contains our own body. And boundaries can also be in intimacy and romantic relationships, and who's allowed to put their arm around you and who's not. Who's allowed to kiss you on the cheek versus who's allowed to kiss you on the lips, right? So it's the physical intimacy boundaries, and knowing with whom that is okay and with whom it doesn't feel okay. Then I think about mental boundaries. Mental boundaries are things such as topics of conversation that are okay to have in this setting at this family dinner table versus which ones we don't touch. Oh, Aunt Rose, we never talk about politics or religion in front of her, right? So there's these unspoken, unwritten rules that people just start to follow. And to me, when you know which topics are okay or not okay, and somehow you've decided that through a series of experiences, that becomes some mental boundaries and framework. Emotional boundaries, a lot of times come up in love, right? Who I'm willing to share my heart with or give love to, or with whom I need to protect myself from. A lot of times, so we're filming outside in Bali, so you might hear the sounds of nature, you might hear the sounds of motorcycles and mopeds. We're just going to roll with that. So the emotional boundaries also, sometimes people allow themselves to feel joy, but they don't allow themselves to feel pain or disappointment. And so there might be emotional boundaries. There's also social boundaries. Whom you'll go out to dinner with alone, to whom you will take phone calls from, or in what situation it feels like a safe and nurturing and connected environment for you. And then there's spiritual boundaries, right? Which to me is someone's openness to discuss the different ways that people feel connected to something bigger than themselves, right? That can be religion, it can be spirituality, it can be a whole number of things and aspects, but it's really about the different ways that people feel connected to something bigger than themselves. And I'm finding that really present here in Bali. There's incense and offerings everywhere, and so I'm finding myself quite open in that regard right now and curious about the Balinese relationship to spirituality. So there's many different aspects to boundaries, and understanding, right, which one of them, I'm losing my flower, which one of them has meaning or relevance in a certain situation matters. Now, does it change in the face of family or friends or romantic relationships? Absolutely, right? How many of you have found that some of your family get to collect $200 and pass go and have get out of jail free cards. They get to, collect $200 and go on the Monopoly board. And they get away with things that you would never let other people get away with. And so sometimes there are different boundaries that we allow. For some other people, it might be how long you've known someone. Oh, they're a childhood friend. They flake on me all the time. But if you meet someone new or at work, you might say, like, it is rude to be late. And so start to notice how boundaries shift for you, how they change in different environments and in different types of relationships. Because I believe that they're different for everyone, and only you can know what's the right boundary for you. The last point I'd like to make is around how boundaries can evolve and change. So I've noticed for myself, as I learn to trust myself more, as I learn to communicate more, my boundaries have started to become clearer. And I very much have expanded in some arenas, and in some other arenas, I've created stronger, more firm boundaries, right? But notice if there's a way, like if you're somebody who avoids conflict, for example, notice how you might not hold any boundaries as long as, someone will just be quiet and not make a scene in public, or just you have, a difficulty with a certain emotion, right? In conflict, maybe. And so if you go to shame or you go to one of the really difficult, vulnerable places, you may just give up any of your voice in those situations, and you might just shut down, physically remove yourself and create a boundary. So it's complex and it's unique, and your boundaries in these different arenas are important for you to think about and be aware of. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And please drop me a tweet at #AskDrNeha, AskDoctorNeha. I'd love to hear from you. What questions do you have that I can answer? All right, or at least try to answer. All right, thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.